the offseason of Giannis. The Bucks are listening to offers for the two-time MVP. He said last year that it might be time to move on. Team owner Jimmy Haslam says we'll find out soon whether Giannis signs a max contract to stay or is moved. Front office insider Bobby Marks joins us now. So, Bobby, let's dive deeper on a potential Giannis trade. What makes the most sense from the Bucks' perspective?
I still think it's Miami, just because they check the three boxes that Milwaukee would be looking for. Certainly, when you look at a win now player, which would be Tyler Hero, the former All-Star, who's entering the last year of his contract. Young players on controllable contracts with Khalil Ware and Jaime Jaquez. And then you look at the draft equity. Miami's got the 13th pick in the draft next week. They also have 2 future firsts that they can move in a deal, pick swaps there. So I do think it's Miami, just based on the 3 criterias that Milwaukee would be looking for. All
right, it feels like the last couple of summers have been the summer of Giannis, so we'll see what happens there. Let's stay in the Eastern Conference. Another free agency development. Wizards guard Trae Young declined his $49 million player option to become a free agent, but Brian Windhorst says that this isn't a surprise and he's expected to re-sign with Washington, likely on a 3-year deal. So, Bobby, why don't you put your GM hat on? The Wizards, they have Trae Young and the number 1 pick. What are the next steps that you would take to get this team into playoff contention?
Well, you're right. I mean, it's going to start next Tuesday night when they have the number 1 pick in the draft, and they're going to be staring down at either A.J. DeBonsa or Darren Peterson or potentially Cameron Boozer. And the player that we haven't talked about much is Anthony Davis, who's extension eligible in August here. I think for me, it's really not what else they can add. It's about learning how to win games. All right, this is a Wizards team that's been in the bottom of the standings. Now you add Davis, Young, and the number 1 pick here, and that's going to be the true point as far as the ability to string games, get rid of those losing habits they've had over the last few years.
Yeah, Trae Young says he thinks that they can be the number 1 team in the East, but they have to beat the Knicks to do that. So let's go to the champs. Knicks owner James Dolan said Wednesday he will not allow his team to go into the second apron ahead of next season. The second apron means that teams are very limited on what they can do in free agency. Only the Cavs were in the second apron this past season. So, Bobby, what does this mean for the Knicks as we head into the offseason?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to go there, and I don't want to say not believe James Dolan here, but I think when we go through the next week here, I wouldn't be surprised if Mitchell Robinson and Landry Shamet are on the Knicks roster, because the second apron restricts you from adding from the outside, from other players from other teams in a trade or free agency. It does not restrict you from retaining your own free agents, and Shamet, Robinson, and Jose Alvarado's got a player option. Those are your priorities as far as to be able to retain. Yes, you will exceed it, but there's no restriction on the ability to re-sign those.
And the biggest exception, of course, being Luka Doncic. Who better to help us parse through all of this than our own Dave McMiniman and Ramona Shelburne, our senior writers. So, Dave, you released a story today on espn.com. I woke up early enough to read it, actually, for my radio show this morning. It was our whole show, basically. So thank you for producing my show today. Biggest questions here for the Lakers offseason. So let's start right there. What's the approach LA's taken this summer?
Well, we'll have to see, right? So let's start with the Luka Doncic part. Luka, the good news is that he is fully healthy. I'm told he's a full go. He's able to do full basketball activities. He's been cleared since May 28th. Now, that's about 2 weeks after the playoffs ended for the Lakers, so it wasn't like he had any chance of returning against the Thunder, but he should be able to come in fully healthy for his second full season with the Lakers. Now, since he was traded from the Mavericks to the Lakers, I had a source tell me close to Doncic that they've been wants to be a part of a championship team. Yesterday, ever since the trade, they always told us summer of 2026 will show you in the summer of 26. So here we are, so excited that the summer of 26 is here. In a way, that's putting the pressure solely on the Lakers front office. We're going to do our part. We were the leading scorer in the NBA this year. We were the MVP of the league. We're going to be fully healthy coming into next year. Now, give me a roster that I can win a championship with.
All right. Interestingly enough, let's bring in Bobby now to this conversation. So, Bobby, it sounds like there's a lot Luka's expecting here, based on Dave's reporting here. So, how can LA kind of pull this all off, especially with the possibility of LeBron still joining the team as well?
I think, George, there's probably 2 different ways that you can look at it. Whether the Lakers want to act as a cap space team and Where does the number look like after LeBron signs? We're projecting them roughly around $50 million. So let's say if he signs for 30, that doesn't really get you much in free agency. $20 million in cap space, certainly in this market of, centers that, contain the two of the best centers are restricted in Jalen Duren and Walker Kessler here. And then there's the other option, which is probably the more optionality-wise, the best way to go is to act over the cap, where you would bring back LeBron James and certainly players like Luke Kennard, and we'll see what happens with Rui Hachimura. And then that basically opens up a lot of different ways you can go from the trade standpoint, where maybe you can package Jared Vanderbilt and DeAndre Ayton, who's got that player option, and go out and get a $28 to $30 million player, and you've got those two future picks along with the pick of this year's draft. So that gives you a lot more flexibility there. So as I said, two different options. The cap space game is a little bit more dangerous just because there's not that much out there in free agency.
Ramona?
Yeah, there's not that much out there in free agency, and the two guys that you'd probably want are restricted free agents, and that's really dangerous, right? Jalen Duren and Walker Kessler.
Yeah. A-list centers, as Dave reported
centers,
today.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, they're restricted. So what does that mean? It means you sign them to an offer sheet, and somebody can match that.
Well, and they've
Their
got
team
48
can match
hours
it.
where their money's tied up too.
Tied up. So
Yeah.
you could wait, and you could sign them to an offer sheet, and then their current team could match it, and then you got nobody.
Right.
And the other centers are off the board. And so I think, as Bobby mentioned, the most likely thing is that you either do a sign and trade for one of those guys, or you do a trade for another center into your cap space. And every conversation I had with the Lakers, I felt like the option of using the cap space for a trade is very much in play, because there's a lot of centers out there that they've been scouting all year long.
Now, the sign and trade part of it, can we bring Bobby back here? The sign and trade part of that, how does that potentially make things either more difficult potentially for them? Where are they capped at that point if that happens?
Well, yeah, I mean, really the sign and trade restriction comes in if you're kind of a high spending team, because then you get hard capped at the first apron. They're nowhere near it. So they do have the flexibility if they want to go out and do it. It's got to be a minimum of a 3-year contract there. So from a flexibility standpoint, yeah, they've got the optionality to do a sign and trade if that's what's on the table.
I can't see Jalen Duren getting away from Detroit. Utah obviously has made an offer, a very strong offer, which Tim McMahon reported was 5 years, almost $140 million to Walker Kessler. He's turned that down, but Utah's turned a lot of things down for Walker Kessler in the past. The Lakers have tried to trade for him. Indiana tried to trade for him last year before they got Zubac, and so you have to think Utah's not letting him go for not a lot of. They want something back for him.
Yeah, I already heard from someone in the Detroit organization today that said, "Hey, tell Luka to leave JD alone." But I reported Luka, even though he's overseas in Slovenia right now, he has been in constant communication with Rob Pelinka and JJ Redick. And the initial, as we alluded to, the initial kind of message that Luka gave to the Lakers is, "Get me an A-list center." And we'll see who fits that bill. Those are the two top restricted free agents we're talking about, Walker Kessler, and certainly Jalen Duren, an all-star who had the best year of his career. But if that's not possible, where do you look to? What becomes A-list?
Are you also saying dominating is not A-list?
Well, I would say that based on my reporting, if Luka's still asking for an A-list center,
that kind of says everything.
It says that he's not asking for the guy that was the center last.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, we saw Time Lord on there. We saw Mitchell Robinson on there. Who knows what'll end up happening? Dave, excellent reporting as always, man. Thanks for the time. All right, let's bring back Sean here. So, Sean, the Lakers have the